thank you, all of you, for being here. I thought I would start with Youree and Stacey, because I know the two of you have the longest standing relationship with Sofia, of anybody on stage. So you've both worked with her in many films since Somewhere. So it's and I was wondering, maybe Youree, you could just set the stage for us by talking a bit about how this project came about. It's Priscilla Presley's memoir came out in the mid '80s.
I was
when did Sofia come to the book and the idea of making this film?
We had been talking about most of pandemic about another project, and as that sort of fell away, we started talking about this, and she sent me the script, and then we started about talking about how we might make it, where we might make it. Sofia likes to use, thankfully, we get called back, but she likes to use the same people, So again, it was figuring out, the usual suspects. It was Philippe, it was Sarah Flack, Stacey, and so we started, talking about casting and all kind of the normal things that you would do when you're setting that up. And it started to, at that point, it started to take shape, and we started at that point figuring out who the partners might be and all of that,
I know I'm sort of asking you to speak for her here, but I think you would be able to in this case if you could maybe say a bit about what you think drew her to Priscilla Presley's story.
Oh wow, you want to take that one?
No, we can take it together.
Okay, cool.
I think it's glamorous, and there's something about that, and also just that she seems like this woman who was given everything, but that there's also something else to the story, that there's I don't know, an inner life that maybe wasn't shown to the public, and Sofia's really good at telling that story, and also sees that story where other people may not see the story within the story.
Yeah, and I think for me, one of the things that was surprising when I read the script was she told me about it, and I kind of envisioned, the first film we worked together on was Somewhere, and I kind of thought that it might just be mostly about the experience of being in Graceland, and I was sort of surprised pleasantly about, how spanning it was, and it went over course of many years, and then of course my production brain started to kick in, and I was like, how are we going to start to do this, and it was exciting, and it's always fun to work with Sofia. It's always a great joy to work with the family of people that she puts together, and but that was one of the challenges, was looking at it and being like, oh wow, we're not just stuck in the 50s or the 60s, but we're also getting into the 70s, and then also just the realities of, even though it's Sofia, making movies like this, making like smaller character-driven pieces, things that are, I like to call them handmade. This was like, there's so much craft and heart that's put into making these movies, and they're not easy to make. They're not. We didn't have a lot of money. We had to make the movie in 30 days, and at first you start out and you're like, okay, I think we can. We need probably 40 days to do this, and then all of a sudden the next thing you know, we're like, we're never going to make this for less than 35 days. And then I'm like, Tamara, what do you think about 30 days? The other thing too is, we went to Toronto, and I think some of our Toronto folks are here. Is that right? Yeah. And like, we weren't sure about Toronto, to be honest. Like, we were like, I don't know. I mean, I feel like I don't see anything necessarily that screams Vegas or Memphis or Palm Springs or any of those kind of things. And then when we got there, we were fortunate enough to work with Tamara, and then it really, Tamara like clicked in, and it was like we had made many movies together, and we had a great production team led by Chris Hatcher, who I think is here tonight. Chris Hatcher and Pete. And, it was a wonderful group that we got there, and so that was very exciting. Just the process of like getting in, digging in, and trying to figure it out. And to be honest too, like I wasn't really sure how we were going to do it, and that's not a great place for a producer to be. Like, you want to be able to go in and know, okay, this is the plan. And we kind of made a deal with each other, Sofia and I, where we said, I was like, there's probably 100 things I can name now that are like problems, but there's probably another 1,000 behind that we just don't know what those things are going to be like. But it was wonderful because she's Sofia, and she's there to problem solve and figure out. And it was a really great experience. We had a great team of people, and we were just really lucky, I think, to make it. And the exciting thing too of like, oh, was somebody gonna clap? It sounded like that, right? Exactly. One of the things too that was interesting was like also once we got Cailee and Jacob there, then it takes on like a whole other thing, and as we're starting to see them in costumes and walking through the sets and all that stuff, it becomes like really exciting, and we start to kind of see what you guys are trying on was really beautiful and special, and gave confidence, because we can do all this stuff, but if you guys aren't doing your thing, then it's not necessarily working, and it really did. So we were really lucky and happy with that. Sorry, I just went on a tangent.
That was great.
I'm going to drop the mic. I'm going to give you my. That's it. Yeah, sorry.
I think a 30-day shoot seems challenging for a film that does all it does. I mean, in terms of covering the span of time, and I'd like to hear, about that from Cailee's point of view. I'm just, because Priscilla, this covers something like 14 years in her life or approximately, and how to do that in a shoot that is condensed. If you could talk a little bit about how you approached, playing Priscilla at different ages, at different stages, because the arc of this character really is the movie.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely right. I think that's the core of the film. So it was definitely something that I tried to be thoughtful about. And in my prep, got really lucky to actually sit down with Priscilla herself and ask her all the questions I wanted to, and take the time and do the homework, and have that sort of set in stone, and know where I was trying to go, and what I wanted to say throughout those years playing her. I just tried to be really mindful of that. But then once you get on to the first day of set, everything goes out the window, and you have to really lean on your collaborators. And I got really lucky with the people I was working on with this, and felt like I could really lean on them. A big rounding part for me, was hair and makeup and costume, of really sort of being my anchor where I was in those storylines. And we shot in 30 days, and we also shot it out of order. I'd be pregnant in the morning, and then after lunch I'd be 14 years old. So it was really, I had to really sort of lean on everyone and sort of go back to my notes and remember, okay, I've got the beehive on, so this is what she's going through now, and I say, okay. But really lucky to have such supportive people around me to sort of guide me and lean on.
Jacob, maybe you can say a little bit about your approach to playing, a mythic figure who's obviously very well documented and has been portrayed many times, and this is, I think, a different Elvis from what we're used to.
I think the kind of first thing is, for me, was just kind of disabling the mythology and playing him or attempting to play him as a human being and a person who was given a certain set of circumstances. So the whole time was just trying to walk the tightrope between, being arguably one of the most sort of famous people in the world and a human being at the same time, and being honest with the love and yeah.
Tamara, I wanted to bring you in, and maybe you can tell us about the challenges of recreating Graceland in Toronto.
Well, I think that finding the exterior was probably the most difficult first thing. The interior was built as a stage set, which is a little easier. And, you know, there's plans of Graceland, and the upstairs, there was no research and no plans, so we kind of made that up and made it into our own. The bathroom, the bedroom, the office. You know, and I tried to get the essence of you know, what Elvis was. But, you know, one of my first conversations, I was just thinking as we were talking with Sofia, I asked her why she wanted to make this film. And, you know, and we talked a bit about a woman being under, you know, the shadow of a man and living in this gilded cage that we had talked about it being a wedding cake and a precious place, and like where you know, you could lick the frosting off the cake, and that's what Graceland was for Priscilla. So I tried to make it Elvis's space, especially the upstairs, but the main floor was Priscilla's kind of gilded cage, as it were.
And Randall, I wanted to ask you about another challenge, which is Elvis is not the main character in the film. It's a film about Priscilla, but certainly Elvis is important in the film, and there's no Elvis music in the film.
Well, there actually, you know, there is. We have Guitar Man in there,
okay.
You know, and we allude to Elvis with Aura Lee that plays in the film, and we hear Elvis at the piano. So we felt like we had a certain foundation that we knew that we would be able to work with. And then really, Sofia, you know, had the courage to really kick the movie off with something that was anachronistic. And I think that was, you know, a great liberation as far as the musical component of the movie. You know, we wanted to show a world that was fueled by the characters that maybe took stage when Elvis went into the army. So, you know, there's a kind of like, I would call it a Frankie Avalon subplot. I don't know anybody else would say that about this movie having, but so, you know, I think we built on this notion of the power of popular music, and we use that to help fuel the story, help to place it in time, and you know, and also, I have to mention that you know, watching the movie tonight, just, you know, preserving those quiet moments where there is no music in the film, I think is just really another sign of just Sofia's vision and confidence to be able to do that. And yeah.
I guess a question that I would pose to all of you is you know, Sofia's I think a very, very meticulous filmmaker, and the films are clearly very planned, and I'm wondering if there were specific reference points that she used for any of you, whether in terms of performance or design or music.
She's always she starts off with a vision and a vision board and a mood book. So I think we're all given that. And then she brings everybody together to collaborate and talk about, you know, the kind of the template that she sets up. At least creatively, I don't know how she approaches you guys.
I mean, in terms of like references from other things?
Did you watch films? Did you talk about other?
Well, the two that stand out to me that I remember her showing us are from Sid and Nancy and Barry Lyndon, and I don't want to say specifically where they are. You can go and find them if you like movies. Yeah, so they're the two kind of specific references that I remember her giving us, right?
Yep.
What did you take from those films?
Shots.
She also, you know, music plays such a big role in telling her the way she tells her stories. But she uses music the whole time while we're filming, which is also this is such a fun sort of thing to be a part of when you're on set, and really gets not only us actors sort of in the right sort of headspace, but also gets the crew in the right mood, and we all are sort of on the same page. And I think that can be a tricky thing to do when you're working on film, and she has so much fun, you know, sort of playing with that. And so there would be certain songs that she would play and to sort of get everyone on the same page, which was always sort of a treat. You know, her own handmade playlist.
Yeah, and sometimes it's stuff that's related directly to the scene, and sometimes it's just for for mood, and it's nice. It's sort of making movies, as probably some of you know, is like not, it can be stressful, and Sofia has a wonderful way of being able to kind of set the tone, and so on set, music is a big part of that, and we're able to play that, and it makes it's a very sort of civilized and pleasant place to be and do your best work, and that's what she encourages from everyone,
And she's also very good at integrating all of the departments and making everyone feel that they're part of the filmmaking, even if they're the PA that gets the coffee or the driver or whoever, but everyone feels like they're a part of making this beautiful, special thing, and she's very good at integrating everybody into her vision.
Yeah, and from that, everyone feels very invested, so they want to do their best work, yeah.
Tamara or Randall, do you want to add to?
Well, it's just reflecting on, there were certain, we weren't making a documentary, but there were certain moments in history that we tried to copy or echo, like the room where Lisa Marie is born and they're first holding the baby. We made the wallpaper to match, the wallpaper from the still photos of that event, and so there were like the poodle wallpaper when Priscilla's having a bath was something that we had seen in somewhere in the Elvis research, and we just replicated it for just that moment. And Sofia would just love these little Easter eggs of little pastiches of history, but also what we could make of it, the mood that we could set. So there's lots of great little moments like that, And I, having just watched the film for the first time, I was like, oh, wow, she really shows the set. All these crazy things that we got, the Jesus in the bedroom was actually something that Elvis had. It was in our research. I know it looks funny, and the strange dogs and stuff, they're character pieces that belong in Graceland.
Yeah. It was also kind of interesting. We had to, most of the time we shoot stuff on location. In this case, for a number of reasons, we ended up shooting a lot of it on stage, and the way it was set up was really unique, and it felt very kind of like the way films were made, way back when, where you had, everybody was sort of under one roof. It almost felt like it was like a movie factory in some ways, where you could walk out of the production offices and you'd walk into the warehouse or stage. We were using it as a stage, and it is a stage, but it was then all of a sudden it would be like, oh, well, here's parts of Graceland, and then we'd come over here, and here's where we were doing fittings, and we were doing all these kind of things.
In the,
exactly.
back of the studio.
And there's something about it made it just feel very communal, and I think that somehow through all of that, also it was nice because we could see what each other was doing. You would see how one department, one creative would walk into another space, and it felt like everybody was able to be working together, making the same movie. Often, when you're making these things, people become partitioned off and they start making different, they're all working hard, but they're kind of making their own movie in a weird way. And in this case, everybody's there to kind of serve the movie, and Sofia could kind of be able to, go from place to place, and it just felt very, again, communal, and it was, I think I'm very proud of the work that everybody did on it, and it's really exciting to finally be sharing it. It's kind of daunting, but it's also really exciting,
I think we're out of time, but our thanks to Sofia and to all of you for this film.
Thank you.